So my name is Sky. Um, Thank you for TH to invite me for talk about this topic. So in the past few years, I've been working with actually TH, Taiwan Star City and Star Island, Taiwan, on consulting startup on various kind of stuff, business development, fundraising fundamental, and also helping some of the startup come to Taiwan. In the meantime, I was working with some of the corporate in Taiwan and government in Taiwan to push their innovation initiative. And recently, I'm just acting as a freelancer to consult startup on their pitch deck, on their market validation, and also their business development in Taiwan. So before we started, I actually want to know more about you guys. Since now it's already like 3 p.m. in Friday, I'm pretty sure it's kind of tired and exhausted especially after two sections, right? I want to know about who you are, why you are here, and how good is your pitch? So is there anyone volunteer, like one or two people, just to introduce yourself? Like, who are you? Why are you here? And how good is your pitch? Anyone? Or everyone's not back yet? Okay, if no one volunteer, I'm going to pick someone. All right. Fine. Let me see. Is Pablo online?
Hi.
Oh, awesome, Pablo.
Hi.
Could you tell me? Awesome. I also have my deck ready. So can we go to the second slide? Awesome. Yeah, Pablo, can you tell us like easy introduction about yourself and why are you here, and also how good is your pitch on a scale of 1 to 10?
Hi. Well, I think nice to meet you, everyone.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Pablo. I'm based in Japan. I have my startup founded in Japan in Fukuoka City, so it's pretty close to Taiwan. And I guess my pitch deck is pretty strong in terms of potential investors. We just finished our MVP recently, and we just graduated from AWS. It started accelerator program that we implement a new ESG into our software. So yeah, so that's it for me.
I would just score yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 for a pitch.
Well, I guess we passed quite the strict AWS started accelerator program with really good advisors. So we guess we got a really good evaluation and review in our pitch. So I guess we are now in the condition to pitch directly to investors. So I guess maybe 8 or 7,
Awesome.
7, 8.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Who wants to go next? Let's just get one more person. You can raise your hand if you want to do it. I mean, you guys are founders, right? I just assume you guys should be a bit more aggressive on this. Oh, someone raised their hand. Oh, Yijin, okay. Please go.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, just wonder I should be aggressive, and I can't stand when the room is so quiet. So just got to
Thank
do
you.
this.
Awesome.
Yeah. So my name is Vivian. I'm based in Taiwan, born and raised in Taiwan, but my company is actually registered in the U.S. Delaware. So we started like globally and coming back to Taiwan. We work on a web-free service, basically a blockchain-based platform for corporates to better integrate all of their ESG endeavors and working on ESG projects. We help corporates to match make with the shelters or different projects that need help from corporates. So that's basically what we do. For why am I here? I guess like when the topics is like related to ESG and also in Taiwan, that's definitely something I'm interested in. And at the same time, how good and I'm pitching. I guess good enough that I can convince people to join my team. So at least also 7 or 8.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, I see one more person, Joseph, right? Let's give it a shot.
Hello, Sky. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Joseph, or you can call me Jose in Spanish. I'm from Peru,
Okay,
but I'm based in Germany. The company also registered in Germany. Why I'm here? Because I want to also bring this company to Taiwan. And I want to also expand in the Taiwan market because I used to live there 10 years when I was younger. Now, I just would like to share a little bit my project, which is multi-platform for personalized menus for food restrictions. So basically, what we want is to create a app to allow people to find valid food options in the market, because usually in the restaurants or hotels or catering services, they cannot find their food, or they suffer some intolerance or allergies. They cannot eat that food, and the change is so hard for them. That's why we can see this now in Germany, and we want to bring this knowledge to Taiwan.
awesome.
The third
Yeah,
question
how good is
is
your
the good about my pitch. I can say like maybe it's not number 10 in not the best, but I still every time I need to do some iterative improvements for the pitching. But so far, doing my pitch, I just collect some fundings like 50K for the EIT food in Europe. So I think it was, I mean, okay for that, but I still need to improve more.
awesome? Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I see there are more people raising their hand, but due to time limit, I will need to go on to the next slide. But this slide mainly I want to address is that it's always important to have a goal coming into workshop like this. When I'm doing workshop with like Line with all the corporate, I'll also always ask this question. So if your goal coming to this workshop today is to really know more about, doesn't have to be pitch, right? It can be the people like Ryan who just have the pitch, and you need to make sure that you actually succeed, right? You need to make connection with him, and all the ways you can talk to the TH people or talk to whoever you can to get a connection. So having that in mind will help you to like know why you are here instead of open your screen and just fall asleep, which is understandable because it's Friday afternoon. But it's always better not to, right? Okay. And last, in terms of why I'm asking how good is your pitch, reason being that my job today is just to help to improve 1 point. So you can be 7, you can be 6, you can be 8. I get a lot of like good quality pitch, right? I can be 9. My job today is after this 1 hour, like 40 minutes, I hope you can add 1 more point to evaluation. All right. Okay. So let's get started, right? Before we get into detail, there are different type of pitch, and then you as a founder, I'm pretty sure you already see most of this. And what I'm trying to say right here is that since there are so many type of pitch and different type of situation, it's very important for you to know why you are pitching in any kind of occasion, right? Who are you pitching to? And do your pitch deck serve the purpose? So very easy evaluation. If you right now you go to your drive or your folder, you only have one version of your pitch, then you're not doing this right. Because when you are doing an investor pitch comparing to you are doing a competition pitch can be very different, right? So Ryan, who just had the talk earlier, he valued more on business model. He valued more on projection. Maybe other investor doesn't value that much, and there'll be a gap right there, right? And then imagine you only have limit of time. You have to emphasize the right point on each conversation or each competition. So that's very important for you guys to understand. Having different versions is very important. And after you create that, it actually can save you a lot of time and bring in more opportunity. So imagine you are in a networking event, right? Actually, we brought a lot of startup outside Taiwan before the pandemic, and they have opportunity to meet like investor for a short period of time, and they need to send over some of the information. And if you only start doing the deck when investor require it, it's going to take you like 2 to 3 days, and then by then the investor might already lose interest. So it's always good to prepare ahead. All right, let's go to the next slide. So some key point before getting into detail is don't try to tell everything in a slide in a pitch deck. And this is what founders normally this is a common mistake that founders make a lot. especially in a pitch competition. I understand why, right? Because you want to show everything you got. But in the end, when you are doing this type of competition, you are not trying to tell everything. You are trying to make an impression, which is the third point. You want the judge to remember you as certain stuff. Like you are good at certain stuff. Like your product is good at certain function features. We don't want to listen to the whole story because people don't have that big of attention before they really care about you, right? And second is plan your time. I think this is relatively easier, something you can prepare for. Either you have a script and then you just practice over and over again and make sure you pace it well. Because what we see a lot in the competition, especially when there's a time limit, we will spend too much time on the very first few slides and then we rush it through the very end. And that will cause you some trouble if there's some main point you want to address in the latest slide and then you cannot. And last but not least is don't try to win an argument. So this is not really necessarily applied to competition, because we also advise and consult a lot of on fundraising, and people go into investor meeting and then sometimes they get offended by a question from investor and all they care about is try to win an argument. And when it comes into pitching, that's not what your goal is. The goal of an investor meeting is to build a relationship, not to win an argument. So have that in mind every time you go into a conversation or a meeting. All right. So the main point is that for this competition or for your pitch or for any type of situation, your product, the market, it's not trying to be the best out of everyone, because it's kind of impossible to do that. Instead, can we go to the next slide? Next slide, please. Yes. Try to be the best fit. So in the competition, previous slide. Damn, this is hard. Okay, thanks. So try to be the best fit. Never mind. Try to be the best fit, right? Because in competition, especially now we have corporates coming in, you are not trying to tell people you are the best product out of all the competitors. You want to tell people that my product or my solution fits your need. So your thoughts and your agenda, create and pitch deck for this competition need to be surrounded by these thoughts, by knowing what they want, like what does Lion Travel want, what type of product are they looking for. So that's how you start to create a pitch deck. So always have that in mind, right? When you're doing a pitch deck, don't try to make a perfect, like the best out of the best pitch deck, but your pitch deck to fit in what people are looking for. That can apply to all kinds of situations. And by having a mindset can already help you a lot. All right, so if we go to the next slide, me personally, to categorize this whole pitch to 3 major areas: is content, delivery, design. And the following slide will be heavily talking about content. We also will touch upon a little bit about the delivery design. All right, next. Yeah, so myself also, law of 3. There's 3 components when you are creating a startup pitch deck. It's motivation, solution, prediction, which is very simple. Motivation is why you're doing this, right? Your vision, the pain point you're trying to solve. And solution is your product, your solution. And in the end, it's the prediction, which Ryan had mentioned he bet a lot, right? Which is the market size, which is projection. All right, next slide. All right, opening. So this is something that people founders tend to ignore a lot. So what we do is that we go on stage and be like, okay, I'm Sky, and I'm trying to solve X problem by Y product. And I guarantee you that's not really impressive. Why? Because let me ask you a question. Do you remember what do I do for a living, or what do I do in my career? You probably don't remember it. You probably don't even remember my name, aside because I have it on my screen, right? Because when you are just trying to tell who you are, it's not impressive. People don't really care about who you are. People care about what's related to them. What are you saying? What the content is related to them. So instead of going out, being like a college presentation and just have this one-liner, we want to tell a story, right? First things on stage, when you go on stage, you want to get people's interest. So how do we do that? Let's go to the next slide. First, we want to identify customers' problem. So let me rephrase my introduction of myself. If I come in and be like, a lot of startups are dying right now, it's because of lack of funding. And the reason they cannot get funded is they are not doing their pitch properly. So the investors are not convinced to give them the money. So with this bait, if you are a founder suffering the same situation, I'll get your attention immediately, right? Because you feel the pain. And then when we have that, we go to the next step. My job is to explain the plan to help them. So for me, I would say something like, oh, my job is to provide solution and service that help founders to adjust their pitch deck. Hence, coming to the last step is to describe a successful ending story. Hence, the startup or the founders are able to raise proper fund to survive or even expand their business. So with this opening, like 3 easy parts of the paragraph, you can utilize it not just in the pitch, but also in all kinds of networking situation. Because I bet a lot of you will encounter question like, oh, what do you do for a living? What's your startup? And you spend like probably 5 minutes to explain it, and people don't really get interest about what you're doing. So I want to do a really quick exercise on this. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, before we go, let's just look at some example. So use car sale, right? Nobody likes to haggle with car salesman. So that's the issue. So what they do is they remove the salesman entirely, and the customer are able to choose and test drive a car hassle-free. And the great ending is so you have a peaceful experience getting the car you want. So this is an example. And then we go to the next slide. Another example about Pastor. You guys can take a look. And the next slide. Financial advisor, also another example. You guys can take a look. So right now, I want you to create the opening for yourself. Let's have 5 minutes of exercise. Actually, let's make it 3 since we are running out of time. So after you finish it, please type in the chat so we can see it. So if we go to the next slide, actually show the tips again. Awesome. Okay, 3 minutes. So after you finish it, feel free to just type in the chat. Yeah, normally it's 5, but yeah, we're gonna run out of time. So again, identify your customer's problem, explain your plan, which is your product or solution, and in the end, what the users can get after using your solution or your product. Okay, 2 more minutes. If you finish, feel free to just type in the chat so we all know, or we can all look at it. All right. I would just assume everyone's still taking their time. No rush. You can just type it in anytime you want, but just because the time is we are running out of time, so I'll just move on. But feel free to just type in anytime in the process. All right, let's go to the next slide. So next, let's talk about pain point. So pain point is something that we all value a lot. That in the startup world, that's basically everything. Like what kind of problem you're solving is a problem big enough for VC to put in money. So that's why we want to spend some time on it to make sure that we get our pain point right. So let's go to the next slide. So one thing that startup kind of have the common mistake is they don't describe the customer too precisely. They often have a problem that's too broad, too big. I encounter startups that talk about they want to solve global warming, right? I'm like, sure, no, but how? Right? Global warming is such a big issue, and I'm sure under global warming there are different stuff you can work on. It can be air pollution, it can be the use of like the consumption of meat, right? A different category of you to improve or adjust or just help the global warming, not just the whole big issue as a problem. So let's see an example. Can we go to the next slide? Like nowadays, there are no baby care product that makes parents feel safe. This actually comes from one of the startups that I consulted before. So if you just look at it, you'll be like, yeah, that seems all right. Doesn't look like there's a problem. But if you dig into it, my question will be, what do you mean about parents, right? Or we talk about parents that already have 2 or 3 kids. They're having their oh, sorry, just stay on the origin slide. Yes, thank you. I already talk about parents that have 2 or 3 kids, right? I'm pretty sure they don't have the same issue as the parents they just have their first kids, where they think it's a whole nightmare, right? They are encountering all kinds of issues. They are experiencing different pain in the process. And when we talk about baby, are we talking about 1 to 2 years old, or 3 to 4 years old, 5 to 6 years old? Again, I'm not saying I'm a parent, or I have a baby, but I just assume, right? Different age of baby definitely have different issue. And that's something that often that founders don't really describe it correctly. So this is something I want to address here. So if you look at your problem and you cannot really specify your customer or TA, then you probably want to go back in and try to fix it. So how do we do that? Let's try to get into detail. Yes. So how to define our customer persona, right? This is some of the things we can do. First, who are they? Second, how do they buy? Like what's their action? And third, what matters to them? So fourth is who influenced them. Right now, different generations have different influencers, especially with B2C product. Right? And fourth, draw a day in the life of your customers. How do we do that? If we go to the next slide. Yeah, yes, thank you. So this is a customer persona, sort of a canvas that you guys can use. Actually, let's start and just have a name, age, background, their daily life. The reason we're doing this is that I'll have example like I have a friend with the same age as I am. We actually went to the same high school, college, and then we sort of the same game, this and that. But he's willing to like 8K LTD, which is around 200 or 300 USD on a spider as a pet. And this is something I would never do, right? That tells you a lot about specify your customer, find the early adopter of your product. And having that can really help you to elaborate your pain point. So what are these people's personality? What do they value the most? What do they need? So this chart, you guys can screenshot it and actually do it by yourself. So what we advise startups do is that when you identify this customer, like very precise, specific person, and you go to them, explain a product, and see if your product really helps them. And that's when you can actually identify your pain point. All right, let's go to the next slide. So common mistake that we made on pain points that we over-explained it. We spend too much time on it. A good pain point explained should be under 20 to 30, even 20 seconds. That you can tell very clear, very simple. And second is don't randomly quote statistic. So people like to do things like, oh, 80% of people on the world are suffering from global warming. That doesn't tell anything. This pain point doesn't tell anything. It doesn't translate to either business value or translate to why we should solve it, right? Is 80% a large number or a small number? What does it mean if we solve an 80% population pain point? Does that mean that we're going to earn a lot of money or not, right? So when you quote the statistic, make sure there's a purpose of it. Third is personal story. So this is something about delivery, right? When we see founders that are actually have passion about what they're doing, normally it's related to personal story. Maybe you yourself are suffering from this pain point, or maybe your family or people you know are suffering from this pain point. That's why you are doing this. Always remember this pitch. We are not presenting a report. We are telling a story about why you are creating this product to solve the issue. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is how you guys can screenshot it. If not, I will send my presentation later on so you guys can look at it. All right, next slide. So originally we'll have time for you to do the customer persona, but yeah, let's get this. Next, get to solution. All right, so product. So one thing that we address here is that I think it's pretty easy for you guys to introduce your product. So a few things I want to advise is that always connect the solution with your pain point. If we can jump into the next two slides. Okay, one more. Yes. So connect your pain point with solution. Often we see somehow, I don't know why, that founders explain a pain point. When they talk about solution, it doesn't match. It just doesn't match at all. That he will talk about a random pain point and come up with a solution with the same industry, but totally different purpose. So how to evaluate whether you are in this situation? We can use a tool called Value Proposition Canva. So if we go to the next slide. Yeah, okay, and one more slide. Awesome. So here, this one way we can identify our customer, also just to make sure that our solution connect to our pain point. So here is a customer job to be done, right? So often you are solving a pain point, there's things that customer do in the process. So let's talk Slack as an example, right? Before Slack, you probably need to communicate with their colleague by using Gmail, like email, basically. What they gain from it on the process is, get information. We are able to communicate with our colleagues. But the pain is that it's not instant. We're going to wait for a couple hours, if not a couple days, to get the reply. So that's the pain. So what Slack provide, if we go to the next slide. On the left is what Slack provide. It's a relief, right? A pain relief. You are able to talk to your colleague instantly on a platform, and you don't have to wait for hours or days to get their reply. So if you use this Canva as an example and just put in your pain point and your solution and see if it match, right? It's the pain point that coming from the customer that your solution is really solving it. All right, next. So one thing about product is the feature. So this comes from especially high-tech ideas or high-tech hardware. So I used to consult like the medical hardware startup. They like to talk about a lot of different features on their product, which is good if you are talking to or having conversation with another medical enthusiastic that you guys are like researcher or engineer. You want to talk about all the nuances, detail, like things that really matters only in the small world. However, when you are doing a pitch or you are a competition, we want to highlight one big feature that's going to change the world. Because that's basically what startups do, right? We are not going to create a product and do. Sorry, let's just stay out of the slide first. Okay, thank you. We are not going to create a product that solve every issue. That's just impossible because we are a startup. We have limit of time, we have limit of money, capital. Even you ask a S&P 500 listed company, they're not able to create a product to solve everything, right? So we want to focus on one feature. And why is that feature able to develop or produce a large money in the future. So if you look at your product, you cannot tell what's the most important feature from your solution, then you might have a problem in terms of your product. Right? You're either trying to do too many things or you don't have a focus. So this is a good way to really evaluate what you're doing right now. Actually using the Canva that we introduced, the VCP, that's the main pain point. What's the main pain point you want to solve that connect to the most important feature? Right, next. So one of the slide that we use a lot, and I feel like people just having it because they see everyone's using it, is the team stuff, right? What we do is that we just put not random headshot, but your team member's headshot on it, and put a name, probably put a degree, and that's it. But why do we have a team slide in a presentation or a pitch deck? In the early stage startup, most VC or most angel, they care about the people more than your ideas or your product. Because you can always change your ideas and your product. You can always pivot. But it's very, very hard to change a person. That's why you guys matters. The founders matters in all type of startup game. So what we're trying to tell in this slide is actually very important. Why you are the person or why you are the team coming out to solve this problem. So degree isn't everything. If you have a good degree, that's definitely the good thing. But degree doesn't have to be everything. You are not coming from Ivy League. So what? If you have related background, if you actually go through some of the project you've done before, you are coming from certain big corporate that you know your game. That's what we're trying to address in this slide, right? So when you have yourself and your co-founder, you're not going to just put a co-founder and tell people, oh, I picked my co-founder because he's my roommate. That's not a case, right? We're going to address why he's the one doing this. Maybe it's because he used to be in a ESG community that he knows what's the pain point. Like he knows the game, he knows the details, he knows who to talk to, he knows the supplier. Like what's the credential, right? Why we are the people doing this. So things you can actually put on there, I would suggest is the project you have been part before, like the project I've worked on before that's related to your startup idea, the company you have worked before that's related to the startup idea. Some of the publishment, like some of the papers that I published before, and maybe just some of the community you are part of too. So anything that's related that you used to do before can be put on the team slide. And another thing is commitment, right? I think this is relatively not that significant because I hope most of you are doing startup on a full-time basis. That's why you are here, flying to Taiwan and come to this award. But what we have seen before is that startup just, or founders say they are part-time founders, right? And that's just never going to work. If you're coming from the VC side or for the judges side, right, the corporate, they don't want someone that's working on their part-time to actually work with them on either initiative. That's just not convincing enough. So having the slides tell people that you're committed to this. You quit your IBM job, you quit your big corporate job just to focus on this project. All right, let's go to the next one. So this slide is all about how to make yourself respectful, like why people should respect you, right? All right, let's just skip this. Why you will talk about this. So remember, you are important, right? Your idea is not that important compared to why you are doing this. Okay, so business model. Ryan talked about business model. So my take on business model is that the important is not to tell what kind of business model you're using. The importance is about whether you know your game, whether you know what type of startup you are. So right now, if you look at a screen, there are 4 different type of business. On the first one, which is a vendor, you probably see a lot if you come to Taiwan, on the street, they can be selling noodles or like jipai kind of stuff. What they do, like their initial capital can be not that big, right? It's probably like 200K TD. How much is that? It's around like 10K USD. You can start a business. And the risk is relatively small, right? You only the worst case scenario, you lose 10K USD, just go do a become full-time again, you'll make that money back. And the return is kind of average, right? You are able to survive. Maybe a better one, you're able to earn more than 100K per month. That's good business. But is that business comparable to Facebook? Not really, right? But back in the day, the initial capital for Facebook, for Mark Zuckerberg, it's not that huge too. For Mark Zuckerberg, he only has to stay in his storeroom, right? And then coding. All it takes is the effort and the time. And I assure you, back then, he doesn't know how to make money. He doesn't know how to monetize his idea. But his goal back then is to get as many users as possible, right? And he still hasn't figured out how to make money. That's why he has to raise equity. He has to raise fund from VC, because their goal in the early stage is to get as many users as possible until later stage they understand, oh, ads is a way to generate revenue. That's where they start to break even. And the third type of business model is like pharmacy model, right? Some of you probably recognize the picture. I'm not going to elaborate on that. Try to make you awake, not falling asleep. So pharmacy business that we have to put in large capital in the first place, which is a large, huge risk by investing in pharmacy or in pill industry. And you have to put in large money, and the return, however, is huge. If they pass the test, the return is huge. However, if you fail, then you are wasting tons of money on this type of business. And last one is Google Map. I'm not sure whether all of you know how Google Map make money. So again, Google Map is similar to Facebook, but not as big as Facebook, right? You still don't have to have large capital at the first place. You need a few engineers, maybe a few hardware stuff to collect data. And then the return is kind of average too, right? Now they authorize API to make money. So authorize API to early days in Uber or any type of business, they need a map. So again, I'm not saying any of this is good or bad. It's about who you are. So you have to understand which stage you're at. Are you a Facebook type of business? Then for you, making money probably is not the big issue right now, right? For you, it's about getting more users. But if you are something like a pharmacy or like a pharmaceutical company, and your goal is to make sure you're going to succeed, or else you're going to lose a ton of money. You have to get that money at the first place, right? You cannot be like Facebook, that you don't need like a lot of money at the first place. You just have to go out there, build their market, and try to raise money. Pharmaceutical business, you have to get a lot of money in the first place. So that's kind of like medical hardware business that I encountered before. So make sure you understand who you are in this spectrum. All right, let's go to the next slide. So a few things about business model often is often blown. So I just want to say that there's no new business model, right? I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it's very rare. You can see most of that right now, like the ads, either it's ads or just very simple. You buy things and you sell things and get revenue. It could be a subscription model. So it's very not like limited, but the very few business model out there. You just have to pick one, right? Knowing that which one you are using. That's it. Because we see also they have like different charts, there are different relation, like different line, and it's super complicated. You have to get to A to B and then to C, and you should get money from D. Nothing is that complicated. You just have to know. Like the judges just want to know how you're going to make money. Or are you going to make money right now or later, right? And second, favorite question from judges. I think Ryan has just proved that. Third is the concept of freemium model. I'm not sure how many of you are doing like platform business or software business or app business that people I do, or like it's quite popular nowadays, is that they talk about freemium model, right? Get users to use a platform first. So good example is Netflix. Actually, Netflix is not a good example. The bad example is WhatsApp, right? If you use WhatsApp, you know they're trying to convert their free users that you don't have to pay for it, and they have to convert to pay business. And no one use that pay business, or very little of them. That's why they cancel it, right? So the challenge of freemium model is actually bigger than people think. So when you are conveying or addressing your female model, you have to understand the difficulty of it. And fourth is the challenge of platform business. I don't think that's that much right now. I think people know how expensive people are, because platform business, one is the people, right? The engineer you need. Second is the cloud space, the server space you're going to spend on it. Because back in the days when Airbnb came out, when Uber came out, everyone's trying to do platform business. People think it's relatively easy and you don't need that much money. Yes, that's true at the first few stage, probably on your seed stage or MVP stage. But when you start to scale, the challenge become bigger and bigger. The money needs become bigger and bigger. All right. Fifth is the understanding of users and buyer. So we also often see a lot that people don't understand who are the users, who are the buyers, right? Who are paying the service and who are just using it. Sometimes they are the same group of people, and that's easy. Sometimes they are not. So everyone use Google, right? Google search. So Google search, we are the users, but we're not paying for it, right? I assume. Yeah, okay. But everyone is not paying for it. Then how do they survive? Who are the real buyers of this business? It's those people who need to deploy their ads, right? They are the real buyers. So you have to understand your business, especially for sometimes B2B normally have this issue too. So take Adobe as an example. People who are using it in the company is the designer, but who are buying it is the management level, right? So you have to convince the management level your company needs it. So that's the understanding of your business. All right, so when we talk about new business model, just know new business model. So I just want to share this canvas. So if you are struggling about business models, this stuff you can use. If we go next slide. Yeah, let's go to the next slide. Awesome. So this is a traditional business plan. I guess if you come from corporate, you see a top-down approach. Basically, want everything to be right before we do it, right? But for a startup, if we go to the next slide, a startup business plan is like this, right? It's a process of reiterating. You want to build a startup, you want to go to a market, you want to validate and come back and change your product. And we do this as a cycle. So that leads us to go to the next slide. All right, so this is something you guys can use if you are still struggling with a business model. This can help you to really have a clear picture of what we're doing right now. Due to time, I can't go into details, but I just want to point out that you don't have to complete everything. This is just a way for you to organize your situation of your product. All right, let's just keep up the pace. Can we move on to the next one? Okay, next one. All right, next slide. You don't have to complete anything. Great, next slide. All right. So this is one of the most important part out of all this workshop is the market validation. And this often people undermine it or you just forget to put it in there. So first, we want to see whether your MVP, people have mentioned, right? You already have your MVP. What have you done with your MVP? Who you have talked to? How many users have used it? What's their feedback? So first is that if your deck is sent as X weeks ago, it's not right. Because startup is a fast-paced business. We are in the like a reiterate process, right? We mentioned you're supposed to go out there and keep testing your thoughts, getting as many users' feedback as possible, and come back and change your deck. So second is traction. So what I would suggest founders to do, if you talk to users or any users have used your product before, they have feedback, the good feedback. You should put on your slides, right? That proves that the market is validated. You know what you're doing. You know who are your early adopter. And often people will be like, oh wait, but I only talk to 4 people. I only talk to 5 users. That's still something that you should put down there, right? So Paul Graham from YC, right? He mentioned one thing about you'd rather to have 100 people who love your product rather than 1,000 or 10,000 of people who kind of just thinks your product's okay. So if you're able to locate these 100 users and you already get their feedback, and they have been using your product a lot and give you different ideas and opinion, you should definitely put on the slides. And third is never too early to sell. So this is also advice for founders that normally it's kind of against our natural instinct, right? We don't want to go out there and make mistake, right? We want to make sure our product is as ready as possible, as perfect as possible, and then we go out there and sell the business, which is a wrong concept, a wrong mindset when we're doing a startup. The whole purpose of doing a startup is keep making mistakes so that you know what the market wants instead of what you want. So if you have an MVP, great, go out there and start selling. And people don't like it, that's even better, right? So you can change and adjust it at the early stage instead of you spend half a year in your lab, spend tons of money, and go out there and find out people don't like it. You just lose this half a year. And fourth is first your first group of adopter. So this kind of connects to the pain point that we talk about. So the pain point can be the people you imagine, right? You think these people needs it. And here, this stage are where you validate whether they are the people that actually need it. So are they your first group of adopter? All right, next slide. Okay, last stage. Next session, let's talk about prediction, right? So let's talk market. Go to the next slide. Awesome. So the whole purpose of this part is actually to know whether you know your market or not. All the prediction you have done or you're going to do in the next few sections, I will tell you that mostly they're not going to be accurate. Mostly they're going to be wrong, which is fine, because prediction is not supposed to be 100% correct. However, this is a way to tell the judge that you actually know what you're doing. You know your market. You know who is the player. How big is the issue? What's the potential in here? All right, next slide. So some tool you can use. So here, if you are not familiar or you just don't know what does it mean about knowing your market, you can try to come up with the number using this. So total addressable market, let's use Uber as an example. Total addressable market is people who need to come from point A to point B, right? Whoever need the service from point A to point B. This is what Uber can provide. However, not all of them needs it, right? Some people prefer taking MRT. Some people prefer biking. Some people just drive by themselves. So S&M or service addressable market are people who actually use the service. Service that's like taxi, Uber, Lyft. This is the service addressable market. And the last one, which is service optimal market, is whatever Uber are able to get after they compete with Lyft, after they compete with taxi. So you can use this to come up with a number. So why is this important? Is when judges look at it, they just want to know whether the market potential is there, whether it is essential or it's worth enough for them to put in money. Like how big is the market? All right, next one. So a few common mistakes that people do when they address the market, they have to say things like, oh, you know what? My service or my product, if I can get just 1% of China market, that's it. I'll be rich, or my product will be successful. However, 1% of market size is meaningless. Why so? Because that means you are not doing your homework right. You have no idea like what's the number you are able to get. Is it 1%? Why 1%, right? Is it 2%? Why 2%? Again, the number itself doesn't really matter. What matters is like how you come up with the number, the process, why you know you can get 2%, right? Okay. Second is your market niche justified. So this happened to solve a lot too. A lot of us were trying to find a niche market that no one has discovered yet, right? No one has developed any product yet. However, this is all very dangerous because sometimes it's just in your imagination. You have to prove that whatever the market, this narrow market, you have already justified by providing your service to them, by finding those users. So this is what we mean about justify your market. Because most of the common market, like the big market, We all know it. That's very intuitive. But some of us are trying to provide service to very niche people. And this often leads to just try to avoid that market is in your imagination. You have to prove it by any kind of, it can be a survey, it can be that people who have been already using it. So any type of way that can justify the market is good. All right. So third is how scalable. So here's what we call about dream big, right? Especially when we're talking to the investor. So we want to prove that when you give me a 2 mil or 5 mil USD, I'm able to scale it up to a 100x return in the future. All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, this is just an example. Okay, next slide. All right, competitor analysis. So this is a must too, right, in every slide. So if we go to the next slide, we'll see how people often do. It's either the one on the left or on the right. And myself, you can pick whatever you want, right? But sorry, let's skip on. Let's stay on the slide first. You can pick whatever you want, but reality is if you pick the one on the left, you'll always be on the upper right, right? I guarantee you. Most of us will do that. So what's the purpose of presenting this diagram? It's actually, what are you defining yourself with other product? So what's the definition of the axis, right? That's why myself, I prefer to use the chart on the right that give you more information. So if we go to the next slide. Sorry, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. So the importance of defining the axis, you have to know what kind of stuff you're measuring, right? Is it the price? Is it efficiency? Or maybe it's a certain feature? Like, what are you differentiating yourself with others? Is what I want to see in this comparison. And second is research on real competitor, not big names. So we see a lot of startups, they say they're competing with Google, Facebook, okay, Meta, right, or Netflix, all type of big corporate. And the reality is most of them are not. Only a very few startups are really, really competing with them. Most of us are competing with the same level of the product, right? Are you telling me that, no, you are trying to compete with Amazon? Not really, right? You might be competing with Amazon's one of the department that's trying to develop some similar product that they are doing. So that's something we can compare instead of just telling people, oh, we're going to beat Facebook. That's just not realistic. It means you're not researching the real competitor. There are going to be a lot of similar players in the field. Can be another startup, right? Can be another SME. They are trying to develop similar business. Only if you get those competitors, thing that they prove there's a market. Second thing is that prove you know who you are competing with. And third is, some of us also say that there's no competition. And for me, that's just impossible, right? If there's no competition, normally means there's no market, or the market is not big enough for people to come in. Even when Uber came in, right? If we go to the next slide, Uber has competitor. Before Lyft, before Uber, when Uber came in, the competitor is taxi. It's a traditional business. So you always have a competitor when you come into a business. All right, next one. So the next few slides is quite common. So how to enter a market. So when we talk about approach, right, we want to tell people how we're going to get into the market. For you guys, it's how to come to Taiwan. So the most important part is how to get the first customer, right? So this is where you pour your resource, right? Pour out everything you can get. So instead of telling people your plan, the better way to tell people who you know, what the resource you have. Maybe you know certain people, certain partner in Taiwan already. You are talking about an MOU. You are building a partnership. This type of stuff are more solid than you just telling a plan. Because this is something that's cooking, but the plan is just a plan. So if you have a connection, you already have doing some business, you maybe already have an employee, you should put that on your slides. All right, next one. Okay, this is basically what I said. Next one. All right, next slide. Next slide. Okay, projection. So projection, I remember Ryan talking about this, right? So I'm just so sure about this too. Everyone's financial projection is going to looks like this. We're going to go up, like maybe a bit downwards, upwards, downwards, upwards, but overall it's going to go up. Because you're not going to draw a projection to go way down, right? Then what's the purpose of doing a startup? Then if everyone's doing this, what's the point? What's the point to have this projection? It's about whether you know your game. Again, whether you know the numbers. Why do you have that projection? How do you come up with the numbers? That's what judges really care about, instead of just telling people it's going all the way up. Okay, next slide. So it's a fact that every projection is just a lie. After 5 years, after 2 years, if you look at projection, often it's not that accurate, and which is fine, because our goal creating this is not to have a perfect answer. We're not looking for an answer, but looking through the process. How do we come up with this projection? It could be cost-based, it could be revenue-based. As long as you get numbers from the market, and this process is actually very valuable, right? It's forced you to understand the market. Why do we think we have 100 mil revenue in next 5 years? How do we come up with that? Okay, next one. So what's your key metric? So this comes to product development or startup development. Sometimes your key metric is not about revenue, right? We already talked about that. Maybe it's about gaining more users. Sometimes it's not even about gaining more users, right? Your metric can be about your users' retention. If I can get 10 users today, how long are they going to stick with my app? I'll have a very easy, like a simple example. So for app like Facebook or any kind of social media, do you think it's more important for them to care about downloading, like app downloading, like how many times the app has been downloaded, or it's more important for them to know how many users have been actively using their app? Right? For me, I'll pick the second option for sure. However, a lot of startups, when they're doing an app, they will tell people, oh, we get like 1,000 downloads every day. But as a judge or as an investor, I care more about how many active users you have. So you have to know what key metric you are going to use for your business. Okay. All right. Finally, we come to an end. Call to action. So the last slide, how many people just put thank you, right? Put thank you for listening, and that's it. And that's terrible. Like the worst thing you can do after the whole pitch. Why? If you are doing a presentation, let's say you are doing this pitch contest, even though you don't win, let's say you didn't win, and it's fine. You want to get more connection, right? I'm pretty sure there's going to be a huge crowd audience. Maybe your goal, aside from winning this competition, is to gain connection, gain VC connection, like Taiwan VC. Then your next step is to tell people, if you are interested in investing, this my kind of startup. We are looking for investment. Talk to us after the demo day, right? And maybe not. Maybe you're not looking for VC. You're looking for partnership. You want to get some business partnership in Taiwan. So your final slide is supposed to be something about, we are looking for a specific supplier from Taiwan and want to talk about the partnership. So that's your next step after finish this presentation, right? We have been talking about this a lot throughout this workshop. What's your agenda for this presentation? And this agenda should present in the very last page. Like why am I doing this pitch? What I'm trying to get for my next step. All right, a few tips just to give you guys for you to prepare your demo day. First, presentation via handout. So handout is when you just basically look at your screen and there's a ton of words, a lot of paragraph, a lot of details, and you just read through it, and that's terrible. We are doing a presentation. We're not doing a handout. We're not printing out the slides to let people to read. People are listening to you. Okay. Second is interactive. So you want to get people's attention. You want people to remember you. So you're trying to interact with people. And I know this is hard, but you can practice, but first try to talk, like present your deck in front of 5 to 6 people that you know, and get used to that interaction. And third is to avoid, the third point is to help you guys when you are talking to VC or investor. Don't try to keep talking throughout the meeting, right? If you are in an hour meeting, you're supposed to just talk about your product for about 10 to 15 minutes max, because your goal in that meeting is to get investors' thoughts on it. Okay, fourth, reading presentation, which I just did. I'm just reading the point out, right? So when you're reading presentation, it's terrible, especially when you have like a full paragraph text on it. Because you have to know the audience can only do one thing at a time. Either they are reading your slide or they are listening to you. So in a competition, I'm sure you want them to listen to you, right? So keep your slide as simple as possible and then face the audience. Try not to read this presentation. Awesome. Next slide. All right, let's talk about some designing. So we often, or myself, that founder will come to me and be like, oh, I don't know how to design, the format, this and that. However, you don't have to be a designer. You don't have to be this crazy designer to have an awesome slide. You just have to make sure some points are right. Color. Don't use over 2 colors. If you are not like this awesome designer, just stick with 2 colors and you will be fine. Your size of the font. Don't use more than 2. Don't use more than 2 different sizes of the font and you will be fine. And font-wise, just use 1 font. That's it. I see people use like 3 or 4 different fonts in one slide, and that's just crazy. All right. Next point is wrong order. So for me, there's no really like wrong order as long as your story stick with it. So it's more about the coherence of your storyline, whether it makes sense. And the next point is each slide has a purpose. So just make sure, what I would do is actually have a poster and then you write what do I want to convey or address in this slide. Maybe for pain point, I'm going to talk about this highlight. This is the only thing I want to address. I'm just elaborate on this. Nothing more, nothing less, right? So each slide has its purpose. So you don't get confused or you don't get elaborate too much on each slide. And the whole connection just get destroyed, And last but not least is show a passion. I'm pretty sure every one of you are here today competing in this competition or come to this workshop. You have passion of what you are doing. You care about the issue of ESG. You care about the pain point. That's why you're doing this business. Show that passion on the stage. Tell people you care. Maybe it's because you're nervous. Some founders, they go on stage and they're super nervous and they're just trying, all they think about is trying to finish the presentation. And that's just not right? You have a great stage for you to tell people that you have this awesome idea to solve this problem that's affecting a lot of people. So show that passion attitude to the judges. All right, that's pretty much it.